Hello, y'all. I cleaned up and cleansed around here. It was bothering me that I had like sage ash on here, and I just felt like it was a little bit, it just needed a revamp. And I swear, every time that certain energies start tapping into readings, I feel like that's the opportunity to cleanse this space and then just revisit. So I cleansed, I cleaned. So I got a new setup here. Yesterday, my son's girlfriend gifted me this basket for Mother's Day, and I was like, that'll be perfect for all the little tarot books that I never use. But ain't it pretty? It's pretty, but I don't know. I just felt like if I ever need to pull from a deck or a book, which sometimes I do actually. Yesterday I did in the group 2 collective space. I pulled from the Wild Unknown Archetype deck. So sometimes I do pull into the book. Okay, so today what we're going to do, hang on one second. Do I have any topics of discussion? I don't think so. Okay, yeah, let's dive into this. Okay, so today we're going to do pick a topic, and this is general advice that's going to come through in this space regarding the topic that you choose. So in the first space, we have life advice. In the second space, we have love advice. And in the third space, we have career advice. So you can listen to all three, pick and choose which ones you'd like, or just focus on the one that you're most interested into. That works as well. I have already pre-shuffled some energy for each one. I actually don't know what the energy is that we're going to be tapping into. I just did them for each deck and didn't look at anything. So we're going to be moving into this surprise as well as to what the message is in these spaces. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive into it. Again, this is general life advice, general love advice, and general career advice in this space. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Group 1, hello Group 1. These are the energies that we have for the general life advice. So what we'll do is we'll just pull these out, lay them out on the board, see what we have, and then get into the general life advice in this space. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. You have the cheetah, the eagle. What else do we have here? You have the patron, the warrior. Hang on, let's move these over a little bit. Underneath my little toy car. My son gave me that. I'll just have little trinkets here. And then the smith. Up here on the top. For your wild unknown archetype energy, you have the creator, the hunter, as well as the shapeshifter here. Let me check on placement just to make sure you can see all the cards. Is this like a little bit crooked here? Here, let's do a little bit of adjusting. How about? How's that? Good. Move my little feathers over. Okay. And then from the Gabrielle Bernstein deck, you have the message, I choose love no matter what. As well as I let go of the shadow of the past by seeing someone for the first time with the eyes of love. And then in your other energies, you have You're Not For Everyone from the Starseed Oracle. Hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. Trying to make this pretty, but you know, it's not super easy here. You have Trust the Timing. And then the last card that you have is the Void. Okay. General life advice. You know, it's interesting. I love that connection still seems to seep its way into every space and every scenario. This is why the other day I made the choice to go back into doing connections, honestly, because our connection readings, because I realized that every time that I was talking about something, I was inadvertently discussing connections, which are the catalyst for our growth, right? So I thought, well, I'm essentially already talking about it, and this is what everyone wants to know about, so I might as well just go in and discuss it, right? So it's interesting that even in spaces when I'm trying to differentiate the impact of connections, which I think is really important for this life advice message, is that it still infiltrates that space. This would arguably be that connections are so powerful to our individual growth and the experiences that we have, that it is interlaced in all of that we do, which I find kind of fascinating. Okay, so let's dive into the Citadel oracles up here. We'll just kind of go across, and then we'll kind of go like this, I think, in terms of reading things. So in the Citadel oracle, you have the Smith, which is overthinking, taking action, the Warrior, which is perfectionism, burnout, the Patron, which is mentorship and finances. So the life advice that you have in this moment seems to do a lot with getting outside of our own head and focusing on what you can. Interesting is that the Warrior card reminds me of the Wheel of Fortune in terms of like the way that it looks within the imagery, and also it has a whole bunch of swords and weapons sort of in the, you know, piercing kind of that wheel in the middle, which to me is sort of ideas in motion, or even hits of information that we learn in life or along the way to put wheels in motion, to move us forward, or the intent is to move us forward. The experiences that we have, no matter big or small, are often not without purpose. Anytime that we are connecting in energetically into some space, there is a lesson or a reason for that interaction. We don't it's sort of like being in an alignment, okay, and then inadvertently just sort of crossing paths in a second, even if it's a small minor interaction, there's some sort of purpose behind that. This is sort of life kind of opening up the, I guess, the book of knowledge for you with this Patron here, and kind of showing you the ways in which all of this brings in abundance in some way. And it's really a matter of how we choose to view what is being brought to us, or what we are eliciting as well, because we very well can inadvertently project onto others and elicit a specific response that validates our internal thought processes, either good or bad. And being aware of that is powerful. It seems like something that you, and on this life path and within this collective, your purpose or why you are here or what you are enduring in this space is with the intent to learn and then teach in some capacity. Many of us on this path have been through, it seems to me that we're all within the same collective, but we're hitting at different timelines, if that makes sense. There are some of us that are tapping into this that have slightly more awareness on how energetic alignment works and have begun to implement things in their life to get them out of specific alignments. Others are still kind of operating in a space where they're aligned in with things that they're experiencing, but don't quite maybe understand the lesson in those spaces, or in some cases want to accept them. When we experience an ego death in particular, it's not fun to face. It's the least fun to face an ego death, and we may very well avoid our own ego deaths by comfortability, by finding ourselves in a space where we don't want to learn the lesson. We don't want to go through that because it's painful, it hurts, it's not fun. But eventually, or usually, something will occur that will put us into a space in which we have no other choice but to learn our lesson, and to learn the lesson that is intended to us to be learned in this lifetime, or in this space, or within self. Because arguably, this entire process is a journey within self, right? Moving down here into the wild unknown archetypes, we have the creator, the hunter, and the shapeshifter. I'm going to start actually with the shapeshifter, because I feel like in this space, what is occurring for you, or within this collective, and you're tapping into this, is a life path of understanding alchemy, but also understanding how we manifest. Manifestation is, it doesn't matter the energy. Okay, so when people talk about, or people, I shouldn't say it that way, when we see information being provided on manifestation, or we hear it talked about, we perceive it as though manifestation is always good. And I think in this collective, we're building in an awareness that that is not true. Dwelling is also manifesting. What we think about, we bring about is, and it's not even, I would argue that it's less about, it's like what we feel about, we bring about, because we can think all kinds of things. We can hype ourselves up. We can even lie to ourselves in some capacity, and sort of protect ourselves from facing the ego deaths, or facing the things that we need to face within self, by sort of, putting a little blanket on the things, on the truth in a way. And it doesn't necessarily have to be bad. We do this in good ways too, where we don't want to accept certain parts of ourselves. And by doing this, we are essentially manifesting a response, like the energy that we are in. So if we are experiencing things that are, coming in a certain way, and then wondering why life is the way that it is, but yet our mindset on life is that everything is going to suck, or nothing is good, or everything is bleh, or it's like, if we move into the space of continuing to look at life as though life is hard, or life is difficult, well, what we are doing is essentially it's sort of like we're the placebo in some capacity in that space, because energetic alignment is really, it is discussed in several different fields. It just depends on what they call it. Some spaces call it quantum physics, or there are ways in which the alignment with energy is discussed within varying fields. But one thing that is not occurring, I saw this in a quote once, is that nobody's denying the existence of energy being present in our lives. When you tap into being in alignment, and here's the thing, and the way I see placebo is that, how I feel that if someone can hand me a pill, and if my mind believes that that pill can cure whatever it is that is ailing me, and it works, then why can't my mind do that in every space and every area of my life? Is it easier said than done? Oh, yeah. It is not easy to rewire our innate responses and behaviors and feelings on things. But over time, we can recondition ourselves. So reconditioning is just simply attacking the negative thought patterns that we have within self, kind of being a hunter a little bit to this, hunting down those limiting beliefs and feelings, and dissecting them and then using them to alchemize, using them to manifest new realities, manifest a new way of thinking, or an upgrade in self and ego. Is it always going to be a simple process? No. There are a lot of us who, I mean, look at this shapeshifter. There's fire and all these things surrounding it and some very thick skin. It's difficult to develop thick skin if everything is handed to you, unfortunately. So no, the process isn't always the most fun. But if you can build gratitude from pain, you can experience an exponential amount of growth, understanding, and I would argue, most importantly, empathy. Because empathy, at its core, requires a shared experience. And while there are several energies and several experiences that we as humans can sort of naturally tap into empathetically, there are some experiences that we cannot all tap into. There are some things that we go through in life that are difficult, and not only difficult, they are within the minority portion of our society. Whereas we have, just here in America, we have over 300 million people. And yet some of us are in a demographic that is, only 10 million people among them have experienced. Well, that's not great odds. That is essentially starting life out 10 steps behind everyone else, or experiencing things that knock you down 10 steps and having to get back up just to get to where everyone else is. You got to take 11 steps up the ladder where they just had to take one. And that is a life of alchemy. And I do feel like if you're in this space and you're tapping into my collective, the life path that you are on and the alignment that you are in, tapping into this collective in particular, is a life of understanding how to grow from the things intended to bring us down. Many among us in this collective are healers, but also many of us are here to kind of understand energetic alignment, moving back into this creator here. The thing about creation, the thing about manifestation, is that you have this sort of wand of free will, right, in your hand, and how you choose to paint the life around you is what you see before you. But instead of painting it, literally, you're painting it with energy. So, and not only that, you're tapping into an alignment with these sort of, the way the energy moves like this, it's going to come back around, and it kind of spirals as well, right? When you tap into an alignment, say you behave a certain way, you project onto somebody, well, that's going to go out, because what it's going to happen is that person's going to feel some type of way. They may end up projecting if they don't nip it in the butt and push it back to you immediately by responding in a way that is not allowing that to bring them down, which is kind of things that we're learning in this space. Then it goes out, and then it's just hitting everybody until it comes back. And by the time that it comes back and hits you, it's at full force, because it just went into this whole trajectory. Essentially, you started a response, right? By putting in a certain energy into a certain space, and then projecting that onto somebody else, and then they project onto somebody else, and then they project onto somebody else. And through this process, this energy is building momentum, and it comes back and it hits you in the ass, and it ain't fun. And if we know, the thing is, I think many of us in this space do have an understanding of a karma. So what we need to do is see that karma works regardless. It works good or it works bad. So you can experience good karma and you can experience bad karma. And sometimes a karma comes back and essentially threefold. It comes out in that trajectory. So if you move into a space then where you're always projecting good intention, then there is no other path back to you than to lift you up. Is it going to take a second? It just may. Are there spaces in which you've projected your insecurities or things that you feel within self onto others? Arguably, yes. And not only that, we are in a system right now that is programming our agitation, or not program, well, yes, that too, programming our conflict, but also eliciting our agitation, wanting us to be in conflict, wanting us to be psychologically segregated. And that's a whole lot of propaganda coming down upon us of. It's lifting up. Thankfully, we are being now taught to be far more accepting of one another, but some of the propaganda surrounding acceptance is also smoke and mirrors, because it's teaching us to be accepting at the expense of others. So accept these people, don't accept these people unless they accept this. And that's just, it's literally doing the same thing, but making it, a false positive. I hope that made sense. I don't know if that didn't. Okay, when I say that, I mean that I don't know if I explained that in the way that I meant it to come out, but okay. Moving now into the cheetah and the eagle. Okay, these are pathways. The cheetah is an energy. This is like a healer energy, okay? They emanate light from within them and chase what feels good, or chase that chase the light in a sense, and then project that out of them. This is an energy that has a very open heart space. So it's constantly projecting out into the world around it good energy to sort of bring up, to ascend the collective, essentially. Within this collective, you're a part of that. You are I was going into this before I went back to the creator, is that many among us are healers in this space. And in order to be a healer in many respects, you have to have healed from something, to know kind of how to help others heal through things that they are going through. So oftentimes healers have had specific life paths in order for them to better understand how to help others when they are going through something. Part of a way to be a healer is to just be in alignment with the energy of light and good intention. Another thing in this space, in this general life advice, which is a little bit deeper than general, I think, is that many of us are also on this sort of journey through understanding evolution. In science it's called evolution, but in spirituality I would argue that it's probably called ascension, stepping through different versions of self. One thing that we have been sort of programmed in our society, especially, I don't know if this exists in all societies, I would argue some are much worse than others, is this idea that people don't change. That, there are certain phrases that exist within our society. One of them I can think of right off the bat is once a cheater, always a cheater. I don't necessarily know that that's an accurate statement. Other things are, taking someone, the cancel culture that we live in, right? Taking someone's opinion that they had 10 years ago and ostracizing them for that today, and really not giving them any space to have evolved it through that 10 years. Or it's just like, it's like me 2 weeks ago getting on here and being like, I'm never going to do a love reading again. And I was just I was having a moment, and then after a couple weeks, then I had time to sort of dismiss it and be in my disgruntled space. I was able to see that, wait a second, connection is existent in all things, and it's no matter what kind of connection it is a catalyst for our growth. So how can I be a reader on energy, talking about energetic alignment, and yet discarding connections in the process. And it just doesn't work. So anyway, moving now into the Starseed Oracle, we have You're Not For Everyone. Embrace your weirdness, face your true north. That's a great hit on facing your true north. So a little story, okay. When I tapped into being a tarot reader, I had started another channel actually in February, and every video had like, I don't know, 12 views. And I was doing it for maybe about a month, and I had like 15 followers. Okay. I decided, I noticed that it was connected to my personal Instagram. And so I found that people were starting to follow me from my personal Instagram on this tarot page I created. And I was like, oh no, people know about this, and it just put me in a weird energy. And I was like, I don't want that. So I deleted all of the videos off of this old channel. And then I sat down one night and I was like going to dissect my birth chart. Okay. So I sat down, I dissected my birth chart, and I knew that your North Node is sort of the trajectory of your life, like where you are intended to be and what your purpose is essentially here while you're here. And so I looked into my North Node, which is in Taurus, and I thought in the house that my North Node is in, it talks a lot about being a leader in sort of an unorthodox way and leading people through a different understanding of looking at life. It also talked about being really heavy in sort of the occult practices, or being having a voice in spirituality, and really trying to gather people together as a whole to understand concepts, to raise sort of the overall awareness. And I thought, oh, okay, so perhaps I do need to be a tarot reader because I'm an energy reader, and I know that I'm very clairsentient. So I'm aware that I have a deep connection with energy through my life experiences, and that I have an empathy within those energies as well, from some pretty low vibrations to very high ones. I have I think a kind of a vast pool of energy to pull from, just from the things I've experienced in life. And so I was like, okay, well, obviously then I'm going to just start over. I'm going to just redo it. And in the first 25 days, I had 25,000 views and 500 followers. And so so when you follow your North Node and you essentially just make the decision that what you are going to do is follow your North Node, it's very interesting how the trajectory of things shift kind of instantaneously. I also had an ego death in this space too. I had an ego death not that long ago, honestly. And it was probably one of the bigger ego deaths that I've had in my life. After I made this choice to follow into my North Node. And this ego death really knocked me down pretty harshly as a result of a connection, actually. And not that that person necessarily did anything, it's just that how I reacted to not getting what I essentially wanted in that space really made me question my own level of maturity. And I really dissected how I looked in that situation. And I thought, man, you need to grow up. I just thought, I just looked at myself a lot differently than I had ever. And I actually do feel that I'm relatively mature, but because of how I'm, when it comes to connections and deeper feelings, and if I'm physically and mentally attracted to someone, oh my goodness, I don't know how to operate very well in that space. And that was sort of this moment that reminded me that even when we are working on ourselves for an extended period of time, there can be a moment within a space or with a person in which you can get knocked down to the point where you then stand up and look at yourself in a new light and change the entire perspective of how you view your own behavior in other situations and scenarios. So this may be a collective that might experience some ego deaths as well, or maybe is being knocked down to look at ourselves more authentically. We also have trust the timing. Trust the wave you came in on. Time is not running out. I do see something that I have noticed in this collective is that everyone that's tapping into these readings, I have access to the analytics, so I can see varying age groups, and it is from 18 to 44. So it's a lot, but the big chunk is between the ages of 25 and 44. That's the biggest chunk of tapping into this. And arguably, I think it is 35 to 44 is a big group. Hang on, let me get a drink of my coffee. And I'm mentioning age here with this time is not running out because there are some that tap into these readings that are, I think, a bit older than I am. I'm 39. And I have felt, even when I had the ego death just, a month ago, I thought, how embarrassing that you are 38 years old. I just had a birthday. And you're just now, I'd assessed my behaviors dissected my behaviors in intricate detail. But for some reason, I just saw myself suddenly so differently and saw myself as somewhat of a brat, honestly, when I wasn't getting my way. And even though I had kind of an awareness of that, I hadn't really just been so knocked down that it changed me and how I operate in everywhere. And so I do think that there are many of us tapping into this that there are some that are, I would say, in a timeline of maybe how I was a few years ago. There are some that are tapping into this collective that maybe are right in alignment with me. And it doesn't matter age. There could be some people tapping into these readings that are older than me that are in a space that I was in learning maybe a year ago or something like that. So age has nothing to do. But I do feel that if you're tapping into this collective, I would be very interested to see if like a year from now you go through this major transition that connects all into this kind of reading here on your general life advice, and then come back a year later and like, oh my goodness, like all of these things happened and I remembered this reading that told me all these things. And I think that would be super cool. But because I've had that experience with readings before. Here we are in the void. Okay, stop, embrace winter, great cosmic womb. Okay, and the womb part I feel like is very important because I do feel that what happens is like we're kind of in this birthing tunnel of life, and I think we go through that several times in this ascension energy, excuse me, is that through the womb of life and that rebirth process is sort of like the cocooning phase for the butterfly, right? We are going through the cocooning tunnel, the womb, actually the cocoon would be the womb, okay? And then there is that birthing tunnel of kind of rebirth then. And within this collective, I would imagine that many of us will experience several rebirths, or that is the intention here. I do feel like another thing that might occur within this collective is that some of us, it's almost as though we need kind of hit over the head with a hammer to learn a lesson. And so some lessons come in very harshly because we just aren't getting it. We're sort of the have to learn things the hard way group. And I'm not sure if that's with purpose or if we're just so stubborn. Okay, lastly, over here with the Gabrielle Bernstein messages, I have, I choose love no matter what. And then I let go of the shadow of the past by seeing someone for the first time with the eyes of love. I think this has a lot to do with seeing self in that space. Um, because once you begin to see yourself through that space, you can then project that into everything outside of you. Within the connections that we develop closely, it's important that we learn to love them through wherever they're at on their journey, and know how to love them as well, and what we, and the capacity at which we can sort of handle our love for them or their love for us. Or in some spaces, there's sort of, there are some energies that become really close to us that seem to just disagree with everything that we say, or disagree with every thing that we do, and we have to sort of navigate that, because oftentimes as humans we tend to seek validation. And so when we have energies that are very close to us in which we're consistently seeking validation from, it's almost as though we're placing our self-worth in the hands of somebody else. And so if we can look at it with love and go, this is not, this is a you problem, kind of, and look at it in a way of understanding projection and energetic alignment, and understanding which kinds of behaviors are attempting to elicit a response, even if they don't understand it. Some of this is subconscious. Some among us have subconscious insecurities, and we project onto others in a way that is eliciting a specific response without realizing it. Or we among this collective are just happen to be sort of in this life path of karma, where energies will approach us with the intent to elicit a response from us, because we tend to mirror in this space. And so if we can get into in a way that we're, instead of reflecting energy, we are quite literally holding the mirror up by standing in our own power and understanding how to respond to energies that are sort of trying to elicit a response from us, we can experience an exponential amount of growth, and we can move into this area of not only loving others for wherever they're at on their journey, but honoring and loving self as well. I am curious if I even need to do a reading in this space. I'm going to go ahead and just pull one card for you from the Hermetic Tarot as a final message in this space, because I feel like this was a lot to unpack in one space. So let's just get you one from the deck that you chose. Water. Hold on. I need a drink of water. What is a closing message for Collective One? Please, this one. The Hermit. The interesting thing about the Hermit is that the Hermit is its own guidance. Okay, this isn't the same as the Hanged Man energy. You know, the Hanged Man energy, I sometimes familiarize these two because they hit similarly, but the Hanged Man is sort of being in a space of learning through external influence in some way, learning through faith, okay, learning from being guided in some way, and just going through a moment of like a transition through some sort of external guidance or faith or spirit. The Hermit, however, the lantern that the Hermit has that is guiding its way out of the cave that it has put itself in is guided by self. So the Hermit is then choosing to go in within and understand self in order to use the light within self to get its own self out of the cave. And for your general life advice, I think this is an energy that you embody, and that sometimes it could be that you're being called to in this space to take that time to dissect self, and to really dissect self, not just, you know, write in a journal one day, but to really sit down and dissect our individual patterns of behavior, how we interact with others, whether or not we project, in what ways that we project, why the projection exists. Why? Because oftentimes the projection is simply an insecurity within self. It is sort of an inferiority that we feel within self that we are pushing onto others in order to set and feel better. I wouldn't say that everyone in this collective is doing this, but I do know that there are some energies that tap in that are in this space that are combative in this way. And also being on the receiving end of that, how can we respond better to that, and where we are when we are maintaining alignment with good intention? Okay, that is the big, huge message for you, group one. If this resonated with you, please do like and subscribe to my channel. Leave me a comment down below. If you're interested in chatting more privately, you can send me an email at thetemporaltaurus@outlook.com and set up either an individual reading with me or an intuitive life coaching session with me. Either of these are available to you at this time. Thank you so much for being here, group one. Enjoy the rest of your day. Group two. Hello, group two. You chose a message on love, a general message on love. So what we're going to do is a big energy read, and at the end we'll pull one card from the deck that you chose as a final message. So we're just going to lay these energies out first. You have the wolf and the hawk. You have the sailor. This is the wild unknown animal spirit. This is the Citadel Oracle. The hound and the thief. The song that just popped up is The Thief and the Moon by Sean James. This is a song that I used to listen to help me through a very traumatizing relationship. So something maybe to consider. Tapping now into the wild unknown archetype. You have the pilgrim, the shadow, and the sword. And then moving into your messages from the Starseed Oracle, you have the weight of the world, Star Brothers, and we are the Hathos. We'll get into all of these too. Messages that you have coming in from the Gabrielle Bernstein deck is, in every moment, the universe is conspiring to bring me toward right-minded thinking and the energy of love. And then we have obstacles are detours in the right direction. Okay. Right off the bat, I think that this love message is actually a message on how to love self and how to let go in spaces in which we are seeking validation or closure and sort of needing or requiring to see ourselves reflected back to us by the version of ourselves that we have created inside of our minds. Okay. We're going to start. I have the energy laid out different here than I did in the other readings. So I'm actually going to start at the Citadel Oracle here at the top. With the Thief card, you have seizing the moment, selfishness. Then you have the Hound, loyalty, chains, promises. And then the Sailor, new influences, wanderlust. I feel like there are many in this collective, in this space, who have actually probably been called selfish before. And I think that this may have been something that any time in which we fought to feel seen or pushed to feel seen or wanted some sort of emotional response and kind of moved into a space of demanding it, could have been looked at as though we were throwing a fit or as though we were selfish for wanting to experience something that felt emotionally fulfilling. And what we did in this phase is we inadvertently moved into fawning, where any time that something didn't feel right to us, we had to question ourselves as opposed to questioning the behaviors of others. It became a space in which we were looking at ourselves and going, well, am I overreacting? Maybe I am seeing this wrong. But I think what we failed to see is that oftentimes the things that were being done to us weren't things that we were doing to other people. So it's as though we were accepting for self less than we were accepting how we would operate and what we would be willing to do for others. In this space with the Hound, we can be loyal to a default in this space. We can find ourselves sort of connected into energies that we feel bound to. And in some spaces, and for some of us, these are essentially bonds that are being built through things that we experienced that weren't healthy, they weren't loving, that taught us that love worked a certain way. And because we tap into energies that sort of operate in the same way, it validates to us that that's how love is supposed to be. So oftentimes, if we experienced cycles of emotional neglect or emotional dismissiveness, then when energies that we love to the same capacity dismiss us, we inadvertently call that love. But that is fear. We begin moving into these spaces where what we are accepting for self is not how we operate. We give in spaces that we don't receive to the same capacity in which we give. And more importantly, many of us are operating from a space where we don't have expectation there either. We only move into agitation when what we've been giving for so long is seldom reciprocated. And then it just frustrates us. With the Sailor card and the new influence and wanderlust, I think this is talking about a new way of looking at how and why we operate the way we do within connections and dissecting the why. Because oftentimes it is easier to seek validation than it is to attack the root of a problem. Because the validation kind of operates like a band-aid. It momentarily fixes what we don't want to address within self or heal in some capacity. Even if we feel that healing exists in the validation that we are receiving from others because they are essentially, in some ways, pacifying us for a moment, and then we find ourselves right back at square one because the root of the problem wasn't attacked. Many of us in this collective, in this space, are really intended to be on a journey of self-love. With the wolf coming out here, we're moving over here, and being in this sort of lone wolf energy, it's not so much that you're intended to go about things alone, but it is that you are intended to rely more on self, to trust yourself, to trust your intuition, and to look at things authentically. Are you accepting less for yourself than you are willing to provide others, and why? Why is it that we tap into these spaces and in connections where we feel that we are not good enough to receive what we are capable of giving? And this is a lot of us. Even those that you are tapping into who treat you that way will become the same. They will be in your shoes in an energy that they feel they would be willing to give to. And we are all moving in this space of accepting less for self, placating our own insecurities, and seeking others to fill the void for us. In this space, what is also present here within the journey of love is evolution or ascension, and going through transformations as a result of various connections. A lot of the connections that we were tapping into are reflections of our, not just our insecurities, our innate, deeply rooted beliefs on love that existed and were formed in various spaces and through various situations. As we get older, we then correlate those belief systems. We don't even correlate them. That's the thing, is that half the time we're not even aware of what we're doing. We're not aware that what we, in certain stages of life or where we were downloading copious amounts of information, we were learning how love works in that space. And if love didn't work that great in that space, it reflects as we get older, and we have to unravel the pattern. And oftentimes the pattern has a lot to do with avoiding things that make us feel bad, avoiding certain insecurities that we have within self, avoiding the reality that it is that we have been essentially programmed to feel that we don't deserve more. Or in some spaces, we have even an era in which we feel that it's almost as though we feel entitled, even, where we move from a space in which we see a connection or see the potential with someone and feel that we deserve that, and especially if we put time and energy in investing how we feel about someone, we feel as though they owe us something, rather than moving into acceptance. In love, in particular, in this space and in this collective, many of us are seeking closure, seeking that someone else validates what we cannot validate within self. Arguably, your biggest relationship in love in this lifetime is the relationship that you have with self. And working on the things within self, the things that you are avoiding, the things that maybe you're not seeing. Attacking those and working to unravel the patterns that have us connected in to essentially accepting disconnection within close relationships. Some advice I have for that, actually, and I don't know if you need to be as extreme as I was, but I was going through a deeply healing journey at one point, and I disconnected from everyone. I went into straight hermit mode and did not bother reaching out to anyone, did not bother engaging into anyone. And the only people that I communicated with in that space is those who peeked into the cave and were like, "Are you okay?" And ironically, some of the people that you would think that would peek into your cave and see if you're doing okay, don't. And I don't feel that anyone owes that to us, but there are certain relationships in our life that I would argue, not that they owe us, but that they absolutely should notice and see if we're okay. And that changed how I saw relationships that I felt deserved to be close because of who they were. And I knew then that I had to restructure how I saw those relationships, because when I was at my lowest, people that I feel should, love me to a certain capacity did not peek in on me. However, those who did became the standard on what I would accept in connections with other people. And it was, if my relationships are not as uplifting and fulfilling and encouraging and honest and authentic and communicative and inspiring, really, as this connection that I have with you, then I don't want it. And that was the energy of one of my closest friends. I was like, I'm just gonna build, and I didn't necessarily tell anybody about this, really. I just decided that was the standard. And I thought, if I have a conversation with someone and I end that conversation feeling worse about myself, that is something that I need to dissect. But I don't ever feel that way when I end a conversation with this person, ever. And I leave the conversation feeling like, man, I wish I would have talked to them sooner, because I could have had another brain to formulate this outcome, and I would have then grew sooner. Sometimes I kick myself in the butt for not messaging my best friend first when I have an issue, because we give each other very solid advice, and she became the standard for me. And I would think that, for some of you, it might not be a bad idea to find energy that you can shift into being the standard of what you accept for yourself, and understanding that is very few people. We all have things going on, so nobody owes us anything when it comes down to it. Even the closest friends that we have don't owe us anything, really. But if you go into the space, you tighten your circle and who you expend your energy with and to and how, and then can begin to mold and shift the standards on who is there for you. And we are, arguably, we become this as well. We aren't always there for everybody either. So this isn't speaking from a space of animosity. This isn't speaking from a space and saying that, it's just we connect in certain ways with purpose, and even we can be this to other people too. None of us are perfect, and that's certainly not speaking from a space of entitlement, right? And that's okay. It's okay if an energy doesn't align with us, or we don't feel comfortable in that space. It's fine. And arguably some people may feel that way about us, and that's okay. We have to accept that. But moving into setting the standard for self is going to help, though, and especially in romantic situations. And going, okay, I want to be in a space with a connection who, when I'm down, they see me down and they reach in and go, hey baby, you doing okay? Let me pull you out. Let me see how you're doing, how you're feeling, what's going on. Or having conversations with them in which when you end the conversation, you feel better, not worse. And this is the thing, is that many of us are tapping into connections in which we feel worse about ourselves. And right there, if we're feeling like we're not good enough, we should know that we're in the wrong space, that we're not in alignment. There's some sort of resistance in that space, and we hang on so tightly, expecting a different outcome. It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And until we understand the pattern, it won't matter the connection that we're in. It'll be the same experience in one way, shape, or form, regardless of who the person is. Moving over here into the Pilgrim, the Shadow, and the Sword. I already kind of touched on the Shadow. The Pilgrim is like being a pioneer. But also, it's about, what is it about, actually? Hold on. You know, I don't ever, here's the group 2. What is it with y'all? It's like I have to read the very specifics on these cards. I haven't had the Pilgrim come out very often at all. I don't ever see that card, so it's very difficult for me to hit it energetically without having already read it, to kind of have a basic understanding already programmed into me on what the card is about. And so I was like starting to read it energetically, and I'm like, what am I reading energetically? So let's really quick just tap into it and see kind of what the basics are on the Pilgrim card before I say something way off base. Because the funny thing is that sometimes when I don't know the card, the hit energetically is like, you don't know what you're talking about. And that's frustrating as a reader. So, okay, so it is about learning, growth, adaptation, and study. It's the Pilgrim knows that the heart belongs in motion. Where there is motion, there is freedom, expansion, and growth. Responsibilities, social conventions, and logistics lull us to sleep. And soon the Pilgrim becomes veiled in the slumber of the day-to-day. Yet, when this archetype awakens, it rallies our sense of adventure and leads us out the door toward a new reality. This could be like a new beginning in terms of love. And more so, group 2 or love group is that it's not even just a new beginning in love, but it's a new understanding of love and how love operates and what it is that we're accepting for ourselves. When it comes down to it, we should not be in spaces where we feel like everything is wrong, or that we're having to be in these, even being here, being in the tarot readings and trying to tap into what someone is feeling energetically because they're not communicating effectively. Communication in the world, and especially within connections, is at an all-time low. It is arguably the reason in which we are in this space. We have people that want to avoid accountability, and so they don't communicate when they've made a mistake. We have people that don't want to hurt your feelings, and so they don't communicate when they feel that they might hurt you. We have people that don't communicate because on the receiving end of that. They're not communicating because they're trying to heal from a connection, and they definitely don't want to interact with that connection that harmed them. And there's all kinds of reasons that we can be in the absence of communicating effectively. Sometimes it's we can behave a certain way that is only a partial illumination to the truth. So oftentimes, a lot of times actually, in connections where there is a severing or there is an absence of communication, what we are doing is we are building a whole reality inside of our heads. And also our brain is wonderful, but not always, like, it's not capable necessarily of differentiating what is real and what is not. This is why energetic alignment works. And if you want to have a whole big old reading on energetic alignment, you should check out group 1. But anyway, so we experience inside our head this essentially like an entire relationship with somebody without ever communicating that. Inside of our head, we fantasize on outcomes. We fantasize on sort of what is happening. And in that space, when we're in mind and we're not present, we are creating realities and scenarios that then, when that doesn't come to fruition, our brain has to grieve from without any closure or understanding. And so arguably, like half the time that we're in this space, it's because we're very imaginative and bored and need something to do. Because we can move into a dwelling space. And then when we're dwelling, what are we doing? We're manifesting. And if we're dwelling on wanting someone to communicate with us, or being in a space of anxiety surrounding a connection, or even putting that out there, then that's what we're going to receive in response, is more of that. Or if we're in a space in which we're questioning what someone does, then we'll have more to question rather than moving into acceptance. And also, without being in a space in which we are focusing on things for self, we are consistently tapping into building a non-existent reality within our minds on how these connections are panning out, and our brain is getting confused. Because our brain then is trying to differentiate what is real and what is not. And it's almost then we become in sort of this self-conflicting space. Right here, right, with the sword, is that we're creating our own conflict and then going, I don't understand why there's so much conflict. Well, because when you're in the void, you're creating realities that don't exist. Moving now here into the Starseed Oracle decks. You have the weight of the world, boundaries, let go, it's not yours to carry. Moving into acceptance in sort of these certain scenarios and situations within connections. Understanding that I actually don't believe the term, if they wanted to, they would. I would argue that that is not true. There are many people that operate from fear and will avoid if they think they might get hurt. So I don't buy that in all spaces. Now, is it mostly true? Yes. Acceptance. And not only acceptance, again, moving into that space within these types of connections where the focus shifts from putting all this love into someone else and really putting it into self, distracting yourself, getting present with self, especially if you're a feminine energy, doing things that spark your interest. Shoot, you could start a YouTube channel as a tarot reader. Just saying, it's effective distraction. And then also setting boundaries and really setting what is accepted for self. I think that I might confuse energies, honestly, because I do feel like I come off as somebody who is seeking validation. But it's just, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I just want to communicate this because I'm capable of communicating this, but I don't know. We all stumble and we all fall. Star Brothers, Horus energy, protection, loyalty, safety, and trust. Safety is huge. Security is essentially what we're looking for in connections with other people. If you feel unsafe, if you feel oh my goodness, if you feel insecure in a connection, that is not the connection for you. Period. If you feel that there's something about yourself that is not good enough, well, first of all, actually, sometimes I feel like when you feel that in a connection, then there is something within self that there is an insecurity and that needs to be tweaked and needs to be addressed and needs to be moved into a secure space within self. Because if someone else can trigger an insecurity within us because of how they treat us, then that insecurity is there regardless of who we're dealing with. That insecurity exists no matter who is on the other end of a connection with us. So understanding that it doesn't matter who it is, if you do not address the insecurity, it's not going to just go away through someone else validating it, because it'll always be a presence within us. Now, I think that there are plenty of people who can love us at the capacity that we are hoping for. I think there are plenty of people who can come in and love us just as we are. But if we don't love ourselves just as we are, it won't matter. So we have to move into that. This is a journey essentially in self-love. At the bottom, we have We Are the Hathos. Deep love, mother's milk, birth as a portal. Yeah, this is talking a bit about rebirth in terms of how we see ourselves, going through this sort of process of evolution within self, and understanding that until we attack those things within self, they will continue to be illuminated. And eventually they're going to come in a way that it's going to be, lessons work in a certain way. It's like they come in kind of, kindly a little bit, and then the less in which we accept the lesson and what we are intended to learn, the harsher the lesson comes in. And then eventually the lesson's going to be standing us right in the face going, I told you so. Now here I am. Now what? Now you have to face me. So we might as well start tackling our insecurities now. Moving over here. In every moment, the universe is conspiring to bring me toward right-minded thinking and the energy of love. Yes. These obstacles here, this is obstacles and detours. Obstacles or detours in the right direction. Exactly. This is essentially a process in which we are facing self over and over and over and over again until we see self in our authenticity and see what it is that is keeping us stuck in these spaces. And it will continue to be a pattern until we address it. All right, let me get you one card from the deck that you chose as a final message in this space, group 2. Oh. I'm messing things up. Okay, what do we have? Light Seers. This is the Light Seers deck. What is a final message for group 2, please? This guy kind of wanted to come out. This is the 8 of Swords. I'm actually going to go ahead and get you 2 cards just because that's kind of a certain hit, as we have the Hierophant, which is good. Okay. So the 8 of Swords, this is the imagery in this is so perfect, honestly. Looking at the Ace of Swords, do you see how in the mirror she has all of these crows around her that are binding her? She's blindfolded, her wrists are binded, and she's got everything sort of swirling around her. All external conflict, really, that she's seeing that as. Like, she's seeing that she is completely bound to, and what is the word that I'm looking for in this space? She is completely restricted, okay? But if you see outside of here, it's all in her mind. None of it is real. She's only holding herself back. But in her mind, everything else is holding her back. But the person holding her back the most is self. Moving then, Taurus energy. We have the Hierophant. Okay, this is taking the moment to really dissect self and understand who we are in these relationships, how we are showing up, why we are showing up in the way that we're showing up, why we are expecting others to validate in self the things that we're not validating for ourselves. This is a moment of deep internal reflection on how to get into a space of self-love. For some of us, this is going to require effort. It is going to require tackling a behavioral pattern. It is going to be tackling a lifestyle change. For some of us, or some of us in this space, that our insecurities are physical, and that's just how it is in this space. There are many reasons in which we operate the way we do in connections, and why we feel we don't deserve more. And almost none of it has to do with the way that somebody else is treating us, but mostly what we are accepting for self. And it's all based on how we see ourselves in those situations. All right, group 2, if this resonated with you, please do like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. If you would like a private reading with me, you can reach out at thetemporaltaurus@outlook.com. Thank you. Enjoy your day. Group 3, you chose career. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you tapped into all of these readings today, but they're pretty powerful messages. So if you have time, there's some like deeper messages in the first 2 collectives. This feels like it's a little bit of an up current, hopefully. I don't honestly know what cards we have in this space. So hopefully the energy is a little bit more, not that the other energies were necessarily a negative energy. They were just a deeper messages, I suppose. Okay, so in this space, let's go ahead and tap into your energy for career. You have, this is upside down, the Dragon. Hey, oh, good cards coming out right off the bat. And the Cosmic Egg. Nice. I like to see that. Then you have, for the Citadel Oracle, the Shepherd, the Botanist, and the Archer. I just want to say that this is giving get knocked down 7 times, get back up 8 vibes. Moving into the Wild Unknown archetypes, you have the Mirror, the Prayer, and the Unseen. Moving into the Starseed Oracle, you have Lifting the Veil, Loosen Your Grip, and Perspective. Lastly, with the Gabrielle Bernstein messages, you have My outer experiences are a reflection of my internal condition. Facts. And then you have, this is a lot of moon energy, y'all. I just want to say that there's a lot in this Unseen card. We're going to just say that real quick. And then I recognize that I have chosen fear, and I choose love. I feel like there is a whole lot of untapped potential in the career space. Arguably, if you are in alignment with me and you are in alignment with my connection, then it's quite possible that you would pair very well with being in a leadership role, or being an entrepreneur, or building a career of your own. I think that just last night in a live, someone said something, and one of the subscribers in that space, I was like, oh my gosh, you could do this and you could do that. And we just began brainstorming a business idea right there on the spot that is in total alignment with that person. So I do think there are many in this collective that are in the entrepreneurial state. Okay, we are going to start with, I think we'll start with let's start with the Citadel Oracle up here, okay? You have the Archer, writing your time, planning ahead. And then you have the Botanist, parenthood, legacy. And then you have the Shepherd, celebration, family. So interesting that it feels as though for many of us, career has a major impact on our relationship with our homes, and how to be of service more there. I can tell you that as an entrepreneur, I have a bit more freedom with my time than I would if I was working. I don't have total freedom. I work weekends, and that's a major problem when nobody else does, but that's something I'm actually trying to get out of because of how it impacts my family. With the Archer here, though, about the planning your time and writing your time and planning ahead. The thing about the trajectory of the Archer, okay, we talked about this, about the arrow and how that operates, okay? There is a pull backwards in which we kind of get knocked down in terms of looking at, starting something and then being knocked down and then having to start over again and being in this sort of space of tension before we are catapulted forward. This is a moment for you to really look at your career differently. Many of you could be in the space right now where you are in sort of the tension backwards, or you're at the space where you're wanting to start something new and then having to go through the trial and error. Arguably, in this collective, you are very capable of facing failure. And here's the thing, is that because you are on the life path that you have, especially with this dragon energy, that would indicate that you have been through spaces in which you have been taught resilience. You've been taught to push forward. So no matter what you do, if you are not building and riding the ladder up, you are not using your capabilities to your advantage, because in this space and in this collection, you do have what it takes to go after what you want. All you got to do is take the step. Many of you are creators. Many of you are capable of taking the things that you learn and utilizing them in spaces to earn income on your own. Many of you are in, it's as though, and I know this process too, because we get it inside self. I think that there is a big message for you also in the collective 2 space, because that was a big message about self-love, actually, it wasn't really 100% about relationships. And what we can do in this space is we can move from a bit of imposter syndrome a little bit, in terms of seeing that we don't feel we're good enough to do that. We don't feel like anybody would even buy from us, or, well, if that's how we feel about ourselves and our product, well, it's going to be a lot harder for us to push forward in that space. Building in a confidence and an understanding of what it is that we can do in order to move into a career that feels more fulfilling, and really dissecting that. Like, what are we good at? I'm reminded, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, but of the Ikigai chart, where you sit down and you put down circles, and it's like, what is my purpose? What is my What do I enjoy? What am I good at? And you kind of graph that out. I've actually done this, and it's a great way for you to look at what you could do and sort of zoom out on a trajectory and how you could make money for yourself. I do think in this space that this is going to be an encouragement to start a small business or to do some sort of side hustle. And because that could really manifest into something very fulfilling for you, especially in this space. In fact, I think this would be a great way for many of you to get outside of your head and to get into a space in which you are doing something for self that is not dependent upon anybody else or anybody else's validation other than the people that you are serving, who are going to you for a service or for a product because they enjoy what you offer. This is an entrepreneurial space. And arguably, it's because, and one thing that's holding you back is that you have this sort of creativity inside of you or something that you can offer the world. It doesn't have to be, you know, our sort of standard perception of creativity, something that you've created or something that you're very good at that you're kind of keeping to yourself. When you give to others, there's an expansion of abundance, right? We know that. So this is like having all of the answers sort of locked up and in a safe and not using them to project out into the world. The Dragon card is sort of the final step in a whole big ascension process, going from the Scorpio energy, which is more combative and avoidant and aggressive in some way, moving into the Hawk energy of taking itself outside of everything or Eagle, and being in an observer status, then moving in through having some major life transitions in the Phoenix energy and going through major transformations within self before ending up in the space of the Dragon with tenacity. I mean, dragons breathe fire, and you are a fire breathing dragon, group 3. It's time for you to see that. There is something, untapped energy within self that you could utilize to earn in this space. And it doesn't even have to be something big. It's just something for self. Some sort of project that you have considered, or some sort of, even if you can get into a space where some of you, and especially in terms of family, if you are in a space right now where you're working 40 hours a week for a company who absolutely treats you as though you are replaceable, and you have environments with certain types of energies that just bring you down and make you feel uncomfortable, or it's just you energetically, you spend a whole 8 hours at work and then come home from work and it's like so exhausted to do anything that feels fulfilling. Well, that is an indicator that many of us honestly are in the wrong space. What if you started something, some small business, and then you could go down to being at a part-time job that you enjoyed? Because that's possible for you if you just put in the effort to do it. Moving over here into the mirror, the prayer, and the unseen. The mirror, I think, is far more, a lot of this, look at all the moon imagery in this. You have the moon here, the moon here, the moon here, the moon here. This is all untapped potential, and this is all unseen. This is all things that we have within self that we can bring to the world around us, that are sort of in this space of in the shadow, essentially. The mirror is indicating that the belief systems that we have surrounding career and money and essentially what we are accepting for ourselves is being reflected back to us through energetic alignment. Mirrors are about reflections more so than they are about having a mirror held up to us. But arguably, this is the world putting a mirror up to you and go, look at this is what you're accepting for self. You are here. And also in this space too, I think that you're being reminded, it's sort of like you are, what's that quote? You are not a tree. You are not stuck. Hold on, coffee break. What are you good at? And also moving into a space of then surrender or praying for that which you want. I think that there's a lot of really good things that occur when you begin to surrender to a higher power. And I know that's like probably not what I mean, this, take it as it resonates in this space, okay? That surrender process though, of surrendering to something outside of yourself and seeking guidance or letting go of that which doesn't serve you and sort of praying for better outcomes, it puts you in alignment energetically with receiving what you're praying for. It's sort of manifestation in just a different format. That's actually arguably why prayer is effective. And of course, we've already tapped into this unseen. I think this is just unseen potential. And it's not even, I don't think it's necessarily a potential that you don't know you have. It's that it's not being able to see how you can bring that to the world around you. And trust. Trust is major here. Trusting self. Understanding that you are a resilient collective. You are capable of earning income on your own. Moving into this energy here, lifting the veil, questioning everything, anything unaligned must go. And that's another thing, another thing, another thing as well, is that if you are in that space of working these jobs that make you miserable, you don't have to stay there. Now, unfortunately, the weird thing that is going on in the world around us is there are so many of these companies that are quote unquote hiring and they're not. So that's weird. But also, even if you're in a space where you must have this job, you must have this career, you must be in this space, you can find things that you can do for self. So many of you have tapped into these, into lives, and it's like, I know that there are people in my collective who have written books. There are people in my collective who are doing amazing things in terms of the tarot community that I'm like, oh my gosh, if you do this, you could gift this to readers and they could be the word of mouth for your business or all kinds of things. Like, this is an entrepreneur space, baby. So if you're in my collective, I'm going to tell you to start your own business. That's just the way it is. I'm going to tell you to work for yourself every time. I'm going to tell you to do something for yourself. And more importantly is like, when you do that, you actually move into having a better relationship with yourself than you'd think, because, and also you can distract yourself from that which isn't working too, which is really nice, honestly. So if you are in sort of these connections, if you're someone in my collective that's tapped into the group 2 space, or is having sort of, conflict in certain areas of life, even in the group 1 space, this kind of stuff, these distractions are so rewarding and so fulfilling. The fact that I started a tarot channel and came here, I did it for a multitude of reasons. I did it because I wanted to earn on my own, and I knew that this was a space of residual income. If I was able to build a big enough following, it was residual income, and that's the best kind of income that you can receive. So I knew that, and then also I knew that hold on, let me back up. Then also, it just became rewarding. The relationships that I've built in this space already, and only being on YouTube for 2 months, are so valuable and very uplifting. And when you guys come and you say the kindest things that arguably I don't hear kind things like that as often as I have in this space. You validate me without me having to do a thing for it. And that's how it works too, when people move into a space where they really appreciate your work. That positive reinforcement is so powerful. And then suddenly it's like you kind of chase that reward a bit. It's incredibly fulfilling to work for yourself, especially when you put in all the effort and then see that reciprocated back to you in people that are happy with the work that you are providing. It's incredibly fulfilling for self. It does so many things to build upon character. Now, granted, like, obviously there are times when you have negative feedback as well, but those are also opportunities of growth as well. And you don't receive them as often as you think. Sometimes they move into a space of fear, thinking, oh my God, nobody's going to like this. And no, that's not how it works. People move into an alignment with you because they like what you like. That's how it works. And sometimes those energies that come in to sort of combat us are there to teach us in a space that, oftentimes we learn from that. We learn from that kind of feedback, and then we come out stronger and build upon that. And I very seldom have I ever received feedback that came in a certain way that I didn't grow from. And it's so few and far between that it's not worth you worrying about. A perspective comes in here. This is about zooming out. None of this matters and common ground. One thing in the none of this matters space is oftentimes like these companies that we're working for, the only thing that they want from us is to get out of us what they can afford to pay us the least amount for the biggest payoff. Oftentimes a lot of companies are like that. They're not concerned about whether or not you're feeding your family. They're not concerned about it. I mean, if you showed up tomorrow and they didn't like the way you showed up or the way that you performed, they would begin working to replace you if you continued that. Despite you could have given a company 5 years of incredible work, but you go through something and that company will seem to have amnesia for the 5 years in which you're an excellent employee, and they won't even be concerned about your mental health. If you come into your work tomorrow and you're experiencing mental health concerns, they don't care. They don't care about your feelings. And so why do we care so much about dedicating all our time to them? Remember, we're in the age of Aquarius. This is the fall of industrialization and also the fall of greed. So I understand that many of you tapping into this is that you have to do what you have to do. And I get that. Okay. But you could start looking into other, if you're in an environment at a job, and it's a job that is something that is not necessarily a career path, okay? There are so many other jobs out there for you. And if you're good at something, if you're capable, you can always build into a career that is more in alignment with you. That's a big thing. You are not stuck. And here's the thing about loosening your grip and coping mechanisms and action, and also let God in is a big message in your thing. Let God help. I know that there are people that might not believe in God. You can see it as, you could even see it as surrendering to your spirit guides if you believe in that, or anything outside of self. Personally, I believe that my personal belief system is that we are on a journey back to God, as I was an agnostic, borderline atheist for the majority of my life, and found my way back to God. So that's my perspective. You're allowed whatever perspective you want on spirituality. But the surrender process, in my opinion, is incredibly effective. So even if you sit down and you meditate and you do a grounding meditation and you release the negative belief systems or limiting belief systems that you're carrying on to, you're still sort of believing in something outside of yourself. And that's very important. And it can also open up sort of awareness for you, begin to see things differently when you begin to surrender, instead of a feeling that self is the only space in which we can harbor ideas from. So obviously there are so many people around us, and even here on YouTube, you're on YouTube University right now. If you want to learn something, you are in the best space to learn it, because you can learn anything practically on YouTube. So many things. So even if you don't know what you want to do and you're like, oh, I've always wanted to learn that. Okay, start. That gives you something to do, doesn't it? It's better than sitting around dwelling. Use that energy that you put into, fixating on what's not working, and use that energy to learn a new hobby, or research how to do, how to operate a business, or what kind of websites to use, or all kinds of things, or find someone who's already doing what you're doing and see how they're doing it, or doing what you want to do, I should say. Here we go. My outer experience is a reflection of my internal condition. Yes, a lot of this is about a belief system within self and where we feel expected. And not only that, it's societal influence as well on what other people expect of us. Going into an entrepreneurial state, arguably, especially as a woman, you it's not always the easiest space to be in, okay? And oftentimes along the way, we are not congratulated. It's like the only time that you get congratulated in an entrepreneurial space is when you've had a big accomplishment that more people than just yourself are sort of aware that you are capable of. So, you know, you can also keep things to yourself until you have built momentum as well. And then we have, I recognize I have chosen fear and I choose again, I choose love. Fear is also often what's holding us back. We're afraid to sort of take those leaps, and so we just keep ourselves stuck under the belief that that's what we're intended to do, and we don't put in any effort or even just take the baby step to see what something else would be like. I think that many among you that are tapping into this collective have potential to start a side hustle that very well could blossom into something very fruitful for you. All right, I'm going to get you one card from the deck that you pulled from as a final message in this space, and then we'll close out this reading for you, group 3. What is the final message for group 3, please? You have the Ace of Pentacles. I'm putting that in the upright because I think I had the whole deck upside down. Actually, I'm also going to pull out the 3 of... Hold up. I'm going to give you more cards because these are important. You have the Ace of Pentacles, the 10 of Pentacles. There's that moon, as well as another moon. Well, this whole deck is about moons, actually, ironically. The 3 of Cups. Okay. Yeah, this is like a new beginning in terms of how to build stability within life. A new idea forming in how to build stability in life. I think many of you in this space, just having tapped into this reading or probably already have your wheels in motion on what you could potentially do to create income for yourself. Okay, so this is a new way of moving into this abundant energy. And interestingly enough is that when you give out from self, that abundance expands, and you'll be in a space then of celebrating self and celebrating something a lot more fulfilling within career. All right, group 3. That is your message for the day. I do feel that there are other really good messages in the group 1 and group 2 space if you are interested in checking those out as well. Thank you so much for being here. If you would like to stick around, you can like and subscribe to my channel. We'd love to have you back. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know if this resonated for you, or let me know what business you're going to start on. And if you're interested in a private reading with me, you can reach out to me at thetemporaltaurus@outlook.com. Thank you so much for being here, group 3. Enjoy your day.